He says he'll discuss the possibility of increasing U.S. troop presence in Poland during Mr. Biden's visit. And for more, we turn to Julia Chapman live from Warsaw. Julia, thank you for joining us. Now, this visit to Poland would be Mr. Biden's second trip to the country in less than a year. What's the significance of this European nation to American interests in the region?
The last time President Biden was here was in March 2022, when he visited a number of Ukrainian refugees. He later went on to make comments saying that Putin cannot remain in power, comments he later ended up rolling back on, saying that was an expression of outrage, not American government policy. But undoubtedly, Poland has become very central to the West's efforts to support Ukraine. It has become a major logistics hub. All of the military and humanitarian aid that comes from the West and goes into Ukraine travels through Poland. There are 1.5 million Ukrainian refugees registered in this country. Poland has also increased its own defense spending to 4% of its GDP this year, higher than most NATO allies. And it has really become a very vocal leader in efforts to do more to help Ukraine defend itself. The White House, ahead of this visit, described Poland as a strident ally, and also foreshadowing some of what President Biden is expected to say in an address on Tuesday. The White House said the U.S. has rallied the world to support the people of Ukraine as they defend freedom and democracy. Now, here in Warsaw, many officials believe it is Poland that has actually been leading the way in that cause. It was very much championing the idea of sending main battle tanks to Ukraine and help persuade other Western allies. It's now trying to do the same with fighter jets. It has expressed willingness to send some of its own F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine, but is hoping that the U.S. will backfill them for Poland. So far, there hasn't been anything like that promised, but that will undoubtedly be discussed when President Biden and his Polish counterpart, Andrzej Duda, meet on Tuesday.
Julia, Poland is keen to have a stronger American military presence in the region. Is this a priority for Warsaw?
It's certainly something we've been hearing increasing calls for. Warsaw officials have been saying they want the U.S. to increase its troop presence here. It has already done so in the last year. There are now around 10,000 American troops stationed in Poland, some of them permanent, others rotating. None of the permanent troops are combat troops, and that is in deference to an agreement with Moscow over not stationing troops permanently on its frontier. But certainly, from Warsaw's perspective, it would like to see more American troops here. It sees the U.S. as one of the major guarantors of Poland's security. And there is a lot of nervousness, indeed, among Eastern Bloc nations like Poland. Of course, it was in Poland where 2 people died late last year when there was some fallout from the conflict in Ukraine, missile defenses landing on a residential building on this side of the border. And Joe Biden will be seeking to assure other Eastern European nations when he meets them on Wednesday, the so-called Bucharest 9 of Eastern European NATO allies, talking about what more can be done to deter what they see as Russian aggression. There will be certainly calls for the U.S. to increase its presence, and Poland will be among the vocal supporters of that idea.
Julia, what would be some of the other significant events on Mr. Biden's trip this time around?
Well, he is going to be meeting his Polish counterpart for a bilateral meeting on Tuesday. Previously, the U.S. Embassy had simply said there was a bilateral on the cards. No one was quite sure whether they meant it was the Polish counterpart or whether President Volodymyr Zelensky would be traveling to Warsaw. In the end, we have seen that that was not the meeting that was planned. Of course, President Biden making his way to Kyiv on Monday instead. And then later in the day, President Biden will be giving an address at a castle here in Warsaw, much like he did last year. He's expected to make statements about the time that he has spent in Kyiv on Monday and what more the U.S. can do and its allies can do going forward, because this is not just a visit to reassure Eastern European partners. It's also an effort to convince Americans back home that the efforts to support Ukraine militarily and in terms of aid need to continue as this war enters its second year. There has certainly been a shift in public opinion in the United States. There's also pressure from some parts of the Republican Party in America to do less, to extend less support to Ukraine. Certainly it has come at a very big cost to America, but Joe Biden will talk about how essential he believes that these efforts are in order to support democracy and the sovereignty of a European nation.
All right, thanks for that, Julia. Julia Chapman reporting live from Warsaw.